The anime is about two assassins who take in a 4-year-old girl after finding out that her mother had abandoned her and the dad was on their hitman list. They only realize they've killed the dad after the deed has already been done. So desperate to fix the mess, they try to search for Miri's mom to get Miri to safety, only to find out that Miri's mom had sent Miri away to look for her dad and just to get rid of her. When they find Miri in a situation where both her parents are no longer around to take care of her, they are forced to take her in despite their unusual circumstances and their jobs. The anime starts off with the two lead assassins out just on another workday. Some flashy cool bike scenes later, they end up capturing their target, and while they were trying to force out conversation, Ray's phone starts to ring and they get the news about their adopted daughter Miri in Osaka being sick at school. To this news, they unalive their target and flee from the place to pick up their daughter from school. In the next scene, the anime starts into the past from the moment before they had met Miri. This is where the story starts to unravel to the point where they officially take in Miri. The two assassins lived a rather plain life where they had no attachments, no nothing, not even a cute pet cat. Given their dangerous jobs, Kazuki doesn't allow any kind of attachment or responsibilities of living things in the house. They fear that the job might pose a threat to anyone who attaches strings to the two assassins. After having lunch, Kazuki hands over a bunch of paper to Rei saying they have a mission on Christmas Eve. We get a cute little montage of Miri walking around in her cute bunny bag. In the next scene, Rei and Kazuki are making their necessary preparations to head out for their next mission. They get dressed up to go undercover and enter the building with their target. While they are heading to the top floor, in the lift, they encounter a little girl standing right in front of them, devouring the cake with her eyes. Seeing a child around, Kazuki panics to carry out his mission. The child eats the cake and admires it, and then asks Santa-dressed Kazuki to fulfill her wish of meeting her dad. Rei and Kazuki then head out of the lift and carry the mission while trying to keep the little demon out of trouble. While they were close to their target, the guy gets his hand on Miri, and to get Miri away from him, Kazuki screams that he's Miri's papa. To this, Miri excitedly jumps and embraces Kazuki. They successfully carry out the mission and head back home with a new mission. The mission being finding Miri's parents, and as they were looking through her stuff, they find out that Miri's father was none other than the guy they had just sent to an early grave. Starting off episode 2 with Miri waking up Kazuki early in the morning to get Miri to the washroom and then wanting breakfast, and within a span of 15 minutes, Kazuki begins to regret his decision. The loud morning wakes up Rei from his sleep, and seeing this opportunity, Kazuki hands Miri to Rei to get her off his back. But Rei denies being Kazuki's papa and asks Miri to refer to him as just Rei, signifying the fact that Rei doesn't want to accept Miri as her daughter yet. At the breakfast table, where everyone was eating Kazuki's signature dish, the French toast, they talk over Miri's situation and how the only option left was now to find Miri's mother and send her back to her mother. Kazuki walks over to Miri to get some information from her, but is returned hopeless since Miri only tells him what she understood from her toddler perspective. They leave Miri behind at home to go out and gather some intel regarding their next mission, but there was a whole different mission waiting for them at home since Miri has wrecked the place inside out. Relieved that Miri was out of trouble despite the looks of the house, they sit down at dinner table discussing their next target when Miri comes up to the table and roasts Kazuki's steak. Then Miri wrecks the house a little bit more and throws another tantrum, and the next day because she wants to assist her dad in his super cool and deadly mission. Kazuki and Rei are left with no choice but to take Miri with them and have her stay back in the car while they get the work done. But there was no way Miri was accepting that, and she just went ahead and was like, LOL, you wish. So she followed them into the building, of course. As Kazuki was being sneaky at his mission again, Miri enters the building because she wanted to use the washroom, and this is where she encounters Kazuki and blows his cover. Since they have been found out, they have no choice but to go all out and have Rei go sniper mode while absolutely slaying, literally also. They fulfill the mission, barely, and return while giving Miri a lecture about how what she did was wrong and she could have ended up in serious trouble and things could have harmed her. The next day, the trio assembles again for breakfast where they eat cereals for the first time and Rei absolutely loves it. They head out to the park, Miri eats some sweet potato, and they come back home with a day well spent. The next day, Kazuki and Rei take Miri on another day out, except they have located her mother and decided to hand her over back to her rightful guardian. Kazuki goes in first to meet Miri's mom at her place, and it isn't the best encounter. Miri's mom refuses to take her back and said that she willingly sent her away to find her father because she didn't want to have anything to do with her. She kept saying awful things about Miri and how Miri's smile made her feel disgusting, and she wanted to get rid of her. She challenged Kazuki to take her back with him, and if he was so determined on taking care of a child, since he won't be able to last a day while taking care of Miri. Obviously, Kazuki wasn't gonna stand around and do nothing. After Kazuki had seen and heard enough of the situation, there was no way he was going to leave Miri behind with this woman, and decided to take in Miri full time. On the other side, Ray is keeping Miri occupied by having a playdate at the park. Seeing Miri alone, the cops start to investigate where the child's parents were, and Ray steps in to claim that he was Miri's papa, which was the sweetest thing ever. Ray and Miri end up meeting Kazuki after he was done with meeting the mom, and signals Ray that the three of them were going home to have dinner together. Hearing the words three of us put Ray to ease, meaning that Miri wasn't leaving to go anywhere. They head back home and have steak, but this time Miri actually likes it because Kazuki bought it from the same store that Miri's mom used to. We then see a few shots of Miri being in adorable chaos and wrecking the place again, and this is when Ray and Kazuki consider enrolling Miri into a daycare, because they realize that taking care of Miri full-time does not give them the freedom to go get back to their jobs, which means the financial freedom that they are having right now is gonna end soon. Kazuki goes on to Google and searches up daycare in their area to enroll Miri, and while doing that, he also convinces Miri to say yes to the daycare plan and get excited about it. Maybe even a little too excited. The two papas make their way into the government office for the paperwork, and after waiting for an eternity, they finally make it to the counter. The guy in the counter asks them to fill out some necessary information, which is honestly too much work. Like, who does that? Not Kazuki, that's for sure. So he puts up a fake yet convincing information together for the paperwork so that no one would be able to dig up their true identities. He hands in the paper, gets the approval seal, and is on his way to find daycares. The first attempt to find daycare was an absolute mess because Miri spilled all the family secrets. Attempt number 2 went surprisingly well, and they were able to finally get Miri into a daycare. The next quest was to get Miri daycare ready and get some necessary things she needs to leap into her journey of daycare, and that leads to a shopping spree. Yay. They buy Miri fancy and cute outfits while they're at it. They even buy some fancy stuff for themselves just to show off. The next day they show up to a daycare absolutely slaying and looking like the moment. However, the parents of the student at the daycare couldn't tolerate Miri looking better than everyone, and this created a drift between Miri and her classmates. She couldn't make friends because none of the kids wanted to play with her. When Kazuki and Miss Anna discuss the issue Miri has been facing with fitting in, Miss Anna suggests that maybe they should appear less rich. The trio then goes on another shopping spree, but this time they go to a cheap store, the one that all the moms buy stuff from, just so that Miri's outfits wouldn't pose an insecurity threat to the other students at daycare. Like, come on, aren't you guys like 4? The second shopping spree was an even bigger success because the things were super affordable and everyone bought way more than they should have. We all love cheap shopping sprees. The next morning, Miri goes to daycare dressed like everybody else, but still looking cuter, and she manages to fit in. Suddenly, all the kids were okay with playing with her, and she ended up making friends because she's a cute little extrovert. From all the shopping sprees that the trio had done to adjust Miri into daycare, we now have financial crisis. When the weight of expenses of raising a child falls on Kazuki's shoulder, he realizes that he needs to fulfill some missions if they want to continue living the luxury lives they've been living. So they rush to the bartender boss, aka Q, and beg him for another mission, and finally they manage to get another money-making job. When they successfully landed to the solution of their financial problems, they find out that Miri's daycare is going to be on vacation for a while, so they're back to square one. They try to pull through while working and also taking care of Miri full time, and this leads to many sleepless nights and burnout. Kazuki then heads out, leaving Miri in the custody of Ray. A little while later, Miri escapes Ray to follow Kazuki around because she's curious about the nature of work her papa is involved in. On her way to following Kazuki, she gets distracted by a dog and loses sight of Kazuki. Soon after Miri is gone, Ray realizes that the house has been real quiet for a while, which could only mean one thing. He picks up the phone and lets Kazuki in on the situation. Panicked Kazuki rushes back to find Miri, whereas lost Miri finds herself in front of the hot bartender's shop, aka Q. She goes in and enjoys a nice little drink, completely unbothered by the fact that she was lost a few minutes ago. Kazuki catches up to the situation and finds Miri sitting in the shop and gives his reaction of relief with no cover. Q obviously realizes the situation but plays along with Kazuki's lie of babysitting Miri for some extra cash. Following Kazuki's lie, Q suggests that he will babysit Miri for Kazuki and Rei until they are done with the current mission. Having no other choice, they agree to leave Miri with Q until they are over with their job. After the mission is done, Q confronts Kazuki and Rei about the situation and asks them what they are planning to do about it. Without much to hide, they tell Q the truth and how they plan on keeping Miri with them. Q tells them about the harsh reality they are familiar with, but seeing that Kazuki and Rei are unfazed, the only thing he could say was them to not regret the decision later, which they obviously won't. We have some daycare drama next. Apparently, Miri hit someone in daycare. Can you believe that? Neither can I, because it's probably not true. But Kazuki wants to consider both sides of the story. Misana complains about Miri to Kazuki, and this leads Kazuki to investigate about the situation for Miri. Miri, being a carefree 4-year-old, doesn't have much to say about the event as she barely recalls what happened. Further pushing of Kazuki for information frustrates Miri, and she runs away from the room while exclaiming that she hates Kazuki. The next morning, Kazuki tries to make up with Miri by preparing an amazing lunch for her to take away to the daycare picnic trip. But sadly, Miri ends up forgetting it, which only means that the Papa Kazuki and Papa Rei will have to deliver it to Miri themselves. As the kids are having a great day at the zoo, Papa Kazuki and Papa Rei are busy stalking Miri to give her the lunch. As they are looking around for Miri, they see her with a group of other students from her class. They start following Miri to find an opportunity to hand her the lunch. While they're around, Miri and her friends encounter a Mario Kart ride, which gives Miri the chance to flex about how great her Papa Rei is at the game, which makes Kazuki super jealous. Not to mention the fact that currently Miri and Kazuki are in the middle of a drama. After walking around for a long time, Miri and her friends decide to sit down and eat lunch, and that's when Miri realizes that she's forgot her lunch. But fear not, her friends share her lunch with Miri, and Kazuki and Rei don't get a chance to step in. During this lunch break, Kazuki and Rei overhear the conversation between Miri and the boy she was suspected to have gotten into a fight with. The boy apologizes for picking a fight with her and being rude, and this puts Miri in the clear since she was never the one who started the fight. Feeling guilty for suspecting Miri, Kazuki returns home and waits for Miri to get home so he could apologize, but when Miri got back home, she was no longer upset about anything and started talking about her trip to her papa's. She then eats the lunch that Kazuki had prepared earlier for her, but before all that, Kazuki apologizes to Miri for doubting her. Next, we see a bit of Kazuki's backstory that has to deal with his sad past. In the beginning of this episode, Kazuki's dark and sad memories are triggered when Miri's umbrella gets run over by a truck-kun. Around this time, this is also when Kazuki had had enough of parental duties and becomes an emotional mom who doesn't want to do any more work, because apparently no one in the house helps her. Help your mom with house chores, everyone. As Kazuki is on the verge of breakdown and snapping, things only lead to more triggering. As Kazuki is doing his daily chores, he starts contemplating his life choices as the cycle of doing one chore to another repeat day after day. The last nail in the coffin is at dinner table when Miri and Rei decide to be picky about food at the worst time possible. Kazuki finally snaps, yells at Miri and Rei for being ungrateful, and storms off to his room. The next morning, Miri and Rei find themselves abandoned by Kazuki, which snowballs from food crisis to health crisis in a span of less than 12 hours. While Kazuki is out there barely enjoying his day off, Rei is having the most difficult time of his life, getting a kid to daycare. To make Rei's situation even better, Miri ends up getting a cold, which leaves Rei with only one option, and that's to rush her to Q, since he doesn't really know where the hospital is. Kazuki, on the other hand, ends up running into her dead wife's sister, and this ends up being a great chance to finally move on once and forever. She talks things over with Kazuki and makes him realize that her sister's death wasn't his fault and that he needs to live his life. After a bit of a pep talk, and finally moving on from the past, and finally teaching Rei and Miri a lesson, Kazuki returns back to an absolutely chaotic mess of a house. But he lets it slide since Rei had actually pulled his way with Miri and even made a French toast next morning for breakfast. Since we got a little bit of Kazuki's backstory, so my man Rei also deserves some screen time and a sad backstory. The scene starts with Rei going out to see his father, who's not really a friendly guy. When Rei is gone, Miri and Kazuki plan to surprise him with a birthday party when he's back. Rei's dad forces Rei to quit living alone and come back to the family estate and work under the family officially to prove himself as a worthy heir. When Rei refuses to come back, his dad gives him a mission to prove himself and his capabilities so that his dad could spare him some more time to consider. Something tells me the answer is gonna be a no, but okay. While Rei is out on a mission with a weird guy with the last name Finnish, Kazuki and Miri prepare cake, food, and gossip about Rei's family. Well, at least someone is having a good time. After some cool fighting scenes, the mission is done and so is Ray. He sits alone in guilt as he slowly feels done with his dirty work and his attachment to his family name. When Ray doesn't pick up Kazuki's call, Kazuki goes to pick Ray up because ain't no way he's giving up on that birthday party he and Miri spent the entire day on. On the way back, the two of them have a nice little nostalgic talk about the old times, which was really sweet and wholesome. They return back home, and half asleep Miri finally gets to wish Ray happy birthday, which makes him really happy and special, and he finally gives us a cute smile. Following the character development of Papa Ray, we see Miri practicing for her upcoming sports festival, while Kazuki asks Ray to encourage Miri while she practices hard to win a gold medal. Ray is a bit confused, but he's got the spirit. He has a hard time expressing his encouragement in 4-year-old terms. In the following scene, we see the trio hanging out at Q's bar where both the papas show off Miri like every dad ever. The next morning, Kazuki starts preparing meals to take along with them to the sports fest, and as Ray enters the room, he asks Kazuki if he could cook something to help out. Like, how cute is that? My boy Ray is finally taking responsibility, and we aren't the only ones proud of him. Kazuki rushes over to Ray to check if he's finally slept, but poor Ray just wants to make rice balls. We then get a wholesome scene of Ray making rice balls while Kazuki is crying in his apron like a mom. After preparing for the meals, the trio arrive at school and looks for their sitting spot, and after getting settled down, a bunch of moms show up and admire Kazuki for his great cooking skill. The field day commences with Miri's welcome speech, and all the parents start cheering the kids for their sports stuff. Then they eat the meal Papa Ray and Papa Kazuki prepared, and everyone loves the unique Ray spoils Papa Ray made. After eating the good stuff, Miri finally runs the race she's been practicing for, but sadly, she ends up not getting first place. But Ray definitely got 10 out of 10 points for finally building up the courage and yelling out to Miri that she was doing great. For the last event of the field day, Papa Ray and Miri end up practicing for the hunt. Miri ends up bringing Ray into the ground too and winning the final race and finally getting the gold medal she's been having her eyes on since the beginning. When Ray later questioned Miri what was written on the paper, Miri handed him the paper that said family, which brings tears to Kazuki's and my eyes. Miri shows off her medal to everyone, and Miss Anna takes a picture for the trio, which, spoiler alert, ends up getting leaked. After the field day comes the Christmas party, which, spoiler alert, again comes with a major drama. While going to pick Miri up, the dad duo encounter an uninvited guest, aka Miri's ungrateful mother. Like everyone, they aren't too happy to see her. When Kazuki confronts her about how she never wanted to see Miri's face but ended up showing up a year later, she had the audacity to claim how she was still her mother and had more right on Miri than anyone else. Not wanting to create a scene in front of the daycare, they unwillingly invite her mom to the house to sort things out. After spending a full day with Miri, they finally sit down to talk when Miri goes to sleep. The mother basically tells them she had throat cancer and now wishes to spend the rest of her life with her daughter. Kazuki obviously doesn't fancy the idea, to which the mother then proceeds to blackmail him, but exclaiming she is well aware of the kind of work they are involved in and she can't let Miri stay in a dangerous situation. Having nothing to say in argument, Kazuki and Rei send Miri home with her mother. When they visit Q, they find out how the events unrolled. The organization had found out the secret lives of that duo, and thus Q had to inform her mother to guarantee Miri out of the picture and keep her safe from the organization. The next morning, Kazuki and Rei have a final day out with Miri to say farewell. They go to the amusement park and go on all kinds of rides. They have an emotional scene at the food court which made me cry into my pillow at 2 a.m. They go on what might be the final shopping spree to get Miri everything she wants, and it's finally time to say goodbye. They hand over Miri to her mom with all her belongings and hug her goodbye, and at that moment, I wish I had never started this anime to begin with. I'm just kidding, it was just really emotional. At the starting of episode 11, we get hit by a truckload of emotions. We get extremely sad and emotional scenes of the not anymore dad duo as they have a difficult time existing without Miri. The atmosphere takes a sad and lifeless turn as Kazuki and Rei don't know how to get back to normal or how their life even was before Miri came along. I'm totally crying and so are you. After living a sad and miserable life, Ray decides to call it quits and decides that he's gonna go back and work with his dad like his dad originally wanted him to. But upon his confrontation with his dad, he finds out the harsh reality his dad was about to put Miri through. Ray's dad told Ray about how he found out about Miri and he was gonna get rid of her once and for all. Rei immediately calls Kazuki and lets him in on how Miri is unsafe, and Kazuki rushes to Miri's mom's place. He arrives just in time, but also too late because by the time he arrives, the freaky last name King guy had already shot Miri's mom. Although luckily they were able to save Miri just in the nick of time, but unfortunately, Miri ends up losing her mom while she's sleeping and completely unaware. The child literally slept through gunshots. Kyo apologizes to Kazuki and tells him how the boss is after Miri. He said how initially he thought the boss would be okay with Miri just being out of the picture, but he didn't think he'd go as far as to unalive her. Which leaves Rei and Kazuki no other choice but to confront the organization and end things once and for all just for Miri's sake and safety. Final episode starts with Miri waking Rei up in the most painful way ever, and then Rei and Miri finally being able to cook up a delicious French toast, which is Kazuki approved. They drop Miri off at daycare like normal and make their way to the organization head office to get rid of the whole problem. They arrive at the mansion and a warm welcome awaits them. A few gunshots later, they again encounter the guy who just wants to hear everyone's last words and can't stop yapping about his fetish. They finally deal with the big guy, and it's finally time for Rei to face the final boss, aka his dad. He tells Kazuki that it's his fight alone from here on and that he'd like to deal with his dad on his own. Rei goes in and straight up tells his dad that he's quitting the organization, and obviously his dad isn't too thrilled to hear about this, and says that he can't allow Rei to quit. He then proceeds to give a cute speech about all the things he got to experience after he left the dark place his dad calls home. Rei then proceeds to shoot his arm to spill the blood that his dad keeps bringing up and walks away with a goodbye. Even though his dad picked up a gun to shoot Rei while his back is at him, he couldn't bring himself to shoot his son because he knew that it was over. Kazuki and Rei rush to tidy up and change into their Santa costume and make it just in time to watch Miri's singing performance, and when Miri notices her papa, she's overjoyed and starts singing with her heart. And as always, Miss Anna captures a picture of the trio that's officially back, with Miri being completely unaware of all the dramatic events that unfolded. We then see a time skip of high school Miri and the dad duo working at their own restaurant. What better way to end the anime with a cute family picture of the trio, as always. And of course, what's Samasa's favorite snack? Cheese! What a wonderful world.